And tomorrow, in case you've been hiding under a rock, tomorrow is the 1 year marker. I'm not going to say anniversary because it's nothing to celebrate. 1 year marker of the attempted coup. Remember that a year ago when a bunch of far right extremists and QAnon supporters and Trump supporters stormed the Capitol, planned to, I don't know, hang the vice president under Donald Trump, who was going to verify the legitimate election of Joe Biden. Remember that? Oh, yeah. Turns out a lot of people are in trouble that helped organize it, including potentially some lawmakers. This was not some accident. This was not some blog post that sparked a movement. This was a coordinated, orchestrated event. And we are just starting to learn some of the details in depth. Whether it's congressional members communicating from the inside with the organizers on the outside, whether it's organizers who are trying to distance themselves, and who knows, maybe cutting some sort of plea deals to out other organizers, then we find out that there are many, many, many people who showed up that day who did not understand that they were part of a conspiracy. And some have even said now they see the light and they understand once they've been arrested by the FBI. There are those like the QAnon shaman who have been imprisoned. And there are those who've been arrested by the FBI who have pled for them not to tell their mothers, like they didn't know once the FBI interviewed them. This is not something that is a one-off. It was a day where the rest of the world sort of just looked at the US and said, now do you get it? Do you get how fast this rises? How fascism spreads? Do you get it? It can happen here. And whether or not those events, which I think they were very successful at what they did, but whether they felt they were successful in, I don't know, somehow overturning the election results, which would have not been doable. But they stormed the Capitol. They got the attention. It went too far, as even Don Jr. and many hosts at Fox News tried to tell the president through the chief of staff, Mark Meadows. Whether or not they were successful or not, this is really the beginning. I think my New Year's resolution, as dark as it may be, is to really help our movement focus on what's in front of us, what our immediate crises are. We've been focusing a lot on long-term goals, which is extremely important. Institution building, running progressives against bad Democrats. But now we see that this is really taken on a life of its own. I remember just a few years ago when people thought that the Republican Party was dying, that they were facing a demographic challenge, that they were too white and they were too old and they're out of touch with an ever-changing, diversifying country. Well, they have found, as they always do, a way to rule by minority. And that minority is growing. They're radicalizing people who are young through things like being an anti-vaxxer or anti-establishment or QAnon, with crazy conspiracy theories that prey on people who understandably don't trust institutions, but they're steering their energy and their anger in the wrong directions. Donald Trump did it by saying, build the wall, it's the Mexicans' fault for stealing your jobs. That's not a new strategy. It's just now they are taking that sentiment, that anti-establishment sentiment, which is, of course, very high because of the conditions we're living in, and they're steering it in directions at Democrats, AOC, extraordinary conspiracies, saying that, the vaccine mandate and mask mandate, and now it's COVID testing mandates are a form of the state oppressing their people. Of course, that's not true. We all know what the state oppressing their people actually looks like in this country. It happens every day. The police force consistently gets away with murdering and injuring people of color. That is the state quite literally oppressing its people. The state, in conjunction with corporations, of course, oppressing its people when they don't deliver the relief needed during a pandemic, during an economic crisis, when folks don't know if the eviction moratorium will remain in many states like New York, when there's barely any relief given beyond, a couple $1,000s last year in an election year by Donald Trump and Congress, of course. We don't know if there's going to be any more relief. We can't even pass BBB because the Republicans and the center right and center left have been working together for 30, 40 years to make sure that corporations and the wealthy are protected. We know this. So across the board, Americans are frustrated. The question is, what are you going to do with your energy? How do we make sure that this greater threat of rising fascism, as the Republicans and far right have taken over the courts, the election commissions, they'll likely win Congress, they'll likely win the Senate, and quite possibly win the presidency in a couple years. Are we prepared for that? Are we doing everything we possibly can to fight that, to get more progressives in? Should progressives be running up and down the ballot? I think so. You've heard me talk about this. You have Proud Boys running for school board and for city council across this country. The Koch brothers have been investing there for decades. Do we have to rely on the Democrats to do so? Instead of complaining about the Democrats, why don't we just run? It is much more achievable to do so at a local level than it is for Congress against an institutional Democrat who's going to make sure to throw a lot of money. Doesn't mean that you can't run for those seats. It just means we have to do more. That's my opinion. So we're very excited that we are going to be launching a few new things this year. One is a partnership with the Benjamin Dixon Show. Of course, Ben is a dear friend of the show and an ally, and we are going to be doing a segment every Wednesday on our show and on his show in the morning. So 8 a.m. Eastern on his show, on his channel in the morning. We're going to be talking with Ben, and then he's going to come over at 8 p.m. Eastern on our show to talk about what it means to be an ally. We will bring in folks from different communities, talk about solidarity with those communities, how you can be a good ally. And this is going to be part of the toolkit that we present to everyone so that we can make sure to get out of this rut and act as wisely as we possibly can to build consortium, to build alliances, to build actual solidarity. Because once again, as we always know, they're always trying to divide us. So what can we do to maintain that solidarity and fight smarter?